Susie,
Rob,
a while ago we did an episode about you choosing names for different dinosaurs, but have you ever given consideration about what it would take to get yourself named as a species of human?
ooh, how do you do that? I want to know.
Well, after we find out about some of the people that have had human species named after them, you may decide that that is not the choice for
Oh,
you. If you
okay.
have to suffer a deeply abusive life, be the source of some horrible religious schism, or be abused or an abuser. So
Oh,
let's
okay.
look
All right,
forward to
maybe
the
not.
let's look forward to that. Okay, so Susie, this week we're taking a bit of a detour from the normal format. There is a paper involved, but it comes right at the very end. I wanted to introduce to you some of these things that a while ago I went a long deep dive when I should have been at work doing all these important things about looking into how people ended up being named after different species. Because, you and I have talked about naming a species. You like choosing your species names, don't you? And we might be
Oh my
talking about
God.
your, yeah,
I'll tell you what, me and my student had a massive long. We had like a half an hour discussion the other day over
hmm
trying to name a dinosaur. It can be quite tricky, can't it?
half an hour, Lord.
It took a long time. We were
Well,
Googling things in Latin, and then we came up with a really good name, and then we Googled it, and it turned out there's a name, something else named us. Always a beetle, isn't there? There's always a beetle.
you have got to check these. I don't know how it was possible in the time before the internet. Like when I found out that one of the fossil fish I was looking at was actually a junior, so someone else had already named it. And I thought there's no possible way they could know that because it was a trilobite. And it's
Yeah.
like, how would you know? You can't possibly know all the names that exist. So I'm entirely forgiving of that person. But let's look at humans though, because that's an interesting example where what is a species and what is different and how do we define these things really gets quite blurry, right? Well, I mean, it's a blurry game anyway, but right at the beginning of this, thinking about what is a species of human, what isn't a species of human, is really tricky. So this isn't the rest is history. I maybe should have checked with your friend Tom Holland before I went too dark into this historical thing. So I
Well,
have
I
to.
think people will be able to tell the difference because of the production quality, Rob. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, we're we're a bit more rough already, perhaps. That's okay. It's part of the homegrown basement podcasting industry. So I'm going to take you on a historical wander through some of these people, and please don't at me if I've got these things wrong, because I got some other things. Oh, that was the update when we talked about the lead poisoning, and I
Yeah.
mentioned that Midgley Jr. guy, and some people commented that actually he knew that lead was bad. So I was saying maybe we could forgive him, and I said we couldn't because maybe he didn't know, but apparently he did know lead was bad and pushed on with it anyway. So anyway.
Did he know CFCs were bad?
I don't think that I don't think the CFCs being bad came up until much later. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But this is where it's difficult when I start talking about history rather than paleontology. Anyway, let's start with Crown Prince Rudolph. So, this is in the 1800s. Crown Prince Rudolph was due to inherit the Austro-Hungarian Empire from his overbearing and conservative father. So, he had a bit of a tough time. I mean, the
So what date
Austro-Hungarian
is this? What date is this? I missed it.
Oh,
18,
1800s. I haven't got a specific
1800s.
date,
Okay.
but this is,
Okay.
peak European colonialism times. Austro-Hungary is not really talked about much anymore, but at the time it was a big deal, right? So he had a in his youth, so he was due to inherit the crown of Austro-Hungary. He was collecting minerals during his youth. He was abused by his teacher in a pretty nasty way. He had a disastrous arranged marriage, which is, pretty typical for these sorts of horrible things. Probably not helped by the fact that he was having loads of affairs and getting gonorrhea.
Oh,
Anyway, he died at the age of 30
from gonorrhea?
from gonorrhea. Actually, I don't know if this was the guy that had the murder suicide. It might have been him having a murder suicide in a horrible way.
Wait, was that
Oh,
an
yes, he
Austria?
did. He ran
Oh,
off with his
different ones.
mistress. So
Okay.
he's basically he kills women and himself. And,
Oh, okay.
anyway, but interesting side note for this, because of this philandering, gonorrhea-ridden adventures and his death at the age of 30, do you know who ended up taking over the crown of due to inherit the crown of Austro-Hungary?
I don't. Who
Archduke
was it?
Franz Ferdinand.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So there's possibility that he might have ended up, the more mineral collecting philandering guy rather than Franz Ferdinand. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, around this time in 1888, Count Samuel Teleki von Zech, a Hungarian aristocrat from Transylvania. Oh, not the only Transylvanian aristocrat we're going to talk about in the near future. He was exploring Kenya looking for a sea that was said to be surrounded by giants and tribes of giants and monsters and ghosts. Now, I don't know if he really thinks that that was the case in Kenya, that there were monsters or ghosts, but that's what he said he was doing. He found a lake. I mean, obviously, this is a stupid thing. He named it Lake Rudolph after Prince Rudolph. Now, I don't know what the people that were already living there thought about that. By the way, guys, we're now going to turn up and call this lake after an Austro-Hungarian prince.
Well, they probably had their own name for it anyway. So they were like, it's like Trump naming the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. Everyone was
Yeah.
probably like, all right, you do you. You go
Yes.
nuts. We'll carry on calling it what we've been calling it for all of history.
Yeah. Hashtag just colonial things. So anyway,
Yeah,
it is now known as Lake Turkana after the Turkana people that lived there, basically, which is perhaps a bit of
there we go.
justice here.
Yes.
So in 1972, later on, Bernard Ngeo, a Kenyan guy, found a human skull near the shore of this lake. And anthropologist Richard Leakey recognized it as a roughly 200 million year old skull, which is different from Homo habilis, potentially with a bigger brain. So Leakey kind of takes over. I don't know if Bernard and I was trying to find pictures of Bernard and Geo, but unsurprisingly, again, not a lot of pictures of him, but lots of pictures of Richard Leakey.
It's all
Anyway,
right. It's a
so
podcast. People are mainly
Yes.
listening.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to find. That's a good point. So obviously, debates are different. As I said, debates are difficult when it comes to human species about, what is distinct, how big is a brain, how distinct are they? But the species was named eventually Homo rudolfensis after the lake,
Ah,
which was after Prince Rudolph. So Prince
I
Rudolph gave
see.
his name indirectly to a species of human. Have you heard of Homo rudolfensis
I
before?
have heard of that before. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Isn't it thought to be a sort of Homo erectus type? I mean, I don't know. Oh God, human. Actually, why are we even going down this? Human species are insane, aren't they? Let's be honest.
it's close to something habilis, like Homo
Oh,
habilis,
is it
like.
habilis like rather than erectus like?
Yes.
Okay, fine. All right.
I mean, new discoveries are being made from this site, but and I think people now sort of tend to move away from saying whether it's one species or another. But there
Yeah.
are lots of new things that relate to that. So that's number one. Are you ready for a second one?
Yeah.
Let me transport you this time to 17th century Russia. So Russia was a pretty different place to it was now. In, they were quite far behind the curve of sort of industrialization in Russia, and there was lots of rural life, but they also big into their Orthodox religion, and a schism was ripping through the Orthodox Church. So I mean, when I tried to look into what this schism in the church was about, I kind of got confused. There's lots of religious persecution. Some people think the church had gone too far and need to go back to its Greek origins, but a lot of it is related to whether or not, when you do the sign of the cross, you use one and a half fingers or two fingers. So
Shut up. That was
yeah.
not what I tell you what. Religion's got an awful lot to answer for. Good
No,
Lord.
it wasn't the only thing, but that was
Okay.
part of it.
That was
Now
a
I
big issue.
can't,
Right.
yeah, I can't imagine the persecutions. A lot of it was also to do with the devil. Is the devil really the devil or the Antichrist? And uh, so some nice, misunderstandings and arguments about what actually is the nature of the devil. So that was the nature of Russia getting absolutely wrecked by this religious persecution. So a lot of people ended up dead and persecuted. Whilst all this is going on, one of these old believers was this guy going back to the old ways called how am I going to pronounce this? Dionysius, Dionysius, also known as Dennis. He
Let's call him
basically
Dennis.
let's call him Dennis. Now we're being guilty of the imperialism here. This guy, Dennis, he's a hermit. So being a hermit was a big thing, apparently. You go into a cave, you live a simple life, and you sort of, do deeds and look after the people and
Well,
inspire
I
the
can
people.
imagine it was if you're being schismed for having only half a finger up instead of a full finger up while you do the sign of a cross. I mean, Christ, hermit sounds like a great option.
Help, I'm being schismed. So he got lots of visits in his cave. This is high up in the Altai Mountains of
He got
Siberia.
visits in his cave. He must have
Yeah,
been really
yeah.
cross because he was a hermit.
No, no, no. He wasn't
Don't
the
want
sort of hermit
visits.
that he wasn't that sort of hermit. He was the one that was
Oh,
more like a pastor. So he was
oh,
receiving people
okay.
to and fro his faith. Anyway, the cave ended up being called St. Dennis's Cave. Have you seen where this is going yet?
No,
No. Okay, all right.
no.
Later on in 2008, Mikhail
Oh, I've seen
Shankov,
where it's
you've seen
going.
where this is going. What happened?
2008.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is in some way related to the Denisovans.
Absolutely, you've got there. You're ahead of me already.
Yay.
So in 2008, Mikhail Shunkov and team went there to have a look in this cave, and they found a tiny little isolated pinky bone from a small girl. It was around 60,000 years old, and they were able to extract DNA from it. Now, in 2008, that's quite ahead of the curve there. We talked about ancient DNA before, but that is way ahead. And what was unusual about this is that the DNA was completely distinct, well, not completely, but very distinct from modern humans and from Neanderthals. It was some other unknown species of people only known from DNA. So that's super cool. So we know much more about the genetics of Denisovans than we do about their anatomy, and that. But so
Can we
they
have a
called it.
quick chat, Rob, about whether
Yeah,
they're Denisovans or Denisovans? Because if they are named after St. Denis, would they not be Denisovans rather than Denisovans?
I see.
But
Saint
you
Denis.
carry on. Yeah, if
Well,
they
I
were
think
named
we.
after a woman called Denise, then they would be
Although,
Denisovans.
although you and I haven't actually said this, I think Fossophiles has taken a pretty clear stance of that we make up our own pronunciation as we go
Yeah,
along.
right, we have. I take it
We
back.
have.
Sorry, carry on, as you were.
No, no, I welcome the interruption. Denisovans, Denisovans. I always hear people saying Denisovans.
Okay, well,
Anyway,
I don't know.
we've got this really rich genetic information about this whole weird species of people. Now, what's super cool about this is that we've now got Denisovans all over Eurasia. Well, not all over, but lots of different sites, and they were interbreeding with humans, and they were interbreeding with Neanderthals, and they were interbreeding with each other. So we can reconstruct that gene flow from all this genetic stuff, which is super cool. We can even say whether it was the males breeding with the females and of one species with the other, preferentially, all sorts of weird stuff going on. And I wasn't going to mention this, but I guess it's going to come up. Through a combination of all these genetic studies, there might be another unknown species of humans out there,
Ooh,
some genetic signature somewhere.
oh,
Anyway,
really?
so St. Denis ends up inadvertently giving himself a species of human. So that's one religious schism, one distorted aristocrat. Which of those two are you fancying so far as your path?
I think I prefer the religious schism to the gonorrhea-laden murder suicide aristocrat.
I mean, I expect for quality of life, Rudolph probably had a higher quality of life, right? He had access to the finest wines and foods of humanity.
I bet he had loads more fun.
I mean, he had a lot more fun. But he did die
All
riddled
right,
with
all right.
gonorrhea and his murder suicide with his mistress. So, on balance, a quiet life in the
Well,
cave, a quiet life in the cave of St. Denis might be the way to go.
I tell you what, I bet the first one, the gonorrhea guy, was a better crack at dinner parties as well. Like, I'd rather, if you're gonna have a chat, I bet he had some good stories.
I bet he had some good bands. He wouldn't have wanted to talk to us, though. We're not aristocratic enough. Whereas St. Denis, he might have welcomed us with open arms.
Yeah,
Who knows? Well, it might have depended on whether we did that or that with our
yeah,
fingers. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, at roughly the same time that Dennis was in his cave, let's take you now to Germany. That was a sneak peek of our bonus episode. You can find the full episode on our Patreon.
The Fossil Files was created by Robert Sansom and Susanna Maidman.
The Fossil Files is a labour of love created in our spare time with no budget, so we really welcome any support you can provide us via our Patreon.
There you can access bonus content and join in the discussion by posting your own questions or even participate in live episodes.
In either case, we want to hear what you think. You can let us know what you thought about the topics we discussed or make suggestions for future papers in our social media channels.
You can find links to our Blue Sky, Instagram and YouTube channels on our website fossils.libsyn.com.
Tune in next time to find out what they dig up.